a king who thought he was a god, an old man who knew better, and a miracle that changed a kingdom forever. This is the story of the ultimate test of power. Deep in the heart of a sun-drenched land lay the golden kingdom of Kazi. It was a place of unmatched beauty, where the walls gleamed like polished brass, and the marketplace overflowed with spices and silks. In Kazi, one rule was absolute. When King Kazi speaks, everyone bows. His wealth was unmatched, but his pride was dangerous. He did not just want to be ruler, he demanded that his people worship him as a living god. For years, the people of Kazi complied out of fear. They saw the dungeons. They saw the heavy taxes. King Kazi's ego grew with every passing harvest, fed by the silence of the oppressed. He built statues of himself at every crossroads, giant towering figures of stone and gold. But true power cannot be manufactured by hands of clay. While the palace reveled in luxury, a quiet wisdom lived on the outskirts of the city. In a small, humble mud brick house lived Elder Moses and his family. Moses was a man whose wrinkles told stories of long winters and whose eyes held the peace of a quiet river. He taught the village children that gold rusts and that true reverence belongs only to the Creator. The palace guards heard rumors of this old man's quiet defiance, but for a long time, they chose to look the other way, until the day of the great festival. On the day of the great festival, the midday sun beat down on the central plaza like a hammer. Trumpets blared, echoed by the pounding of massive drums. The entire kingdom was gathered. At the blast of the final horn, as was the law, the entire kingdom fell to their faces in fear. Thousands of bodies pressed against the dusty ground, except for one. In the dead center of the square, one man remained standing. Elder Moses stood straight, his staff planted firmly in the earth, his gaze lifted not to the throne, but to the sky.
Who is this old fool who dares to look down on my crown? Do you not fear my power, old man?
The crowns of men are made of gold, King Kazi, but they turn to dust. There is only one king whose throne lasts forever.
A collective gasp rippled through the kneeling crowd. No one had ever spoken to the king this way. King Kazi's hand gripped the armrest of his throne so tightly his knuckles turned white. He was furious, but he was also calculating. He looked at the faces of the villagers peeking up from the dirt. He knew he could not execute the beloved village elder right here without a reason, or the people would revolt. Moses was the heart of the community. To kill him openly for his faith would turn him into a martyr. So the arrogant king suppressed his rage, forced a wicked smile, and plotted a dark, hidden trap. That night, while the kingdom slept under a blanket of heavy stars, the king summoned his most trusted, corrupt guard. Under the cover of darkness, they prepared the annual charity baskets, baskets meant for the poorest families, an act the king used solely for public relations. King Kazi took his own royal signet ring, the ultimate symbol of his legal authority, and hid it deep inside a sacrificial food basket specifically designated for Moses' family. The next morning, before the sun could even warm the horizon, the trap was sprung.
The king's ring! Elder Moses is a thief!
The village woke to the sounds of iron boots and screaming. The guards dragged Moses from his bed, tipping over the morning food basket. Out rolled the heavy golden ring, gleaming in the dirt. The villagers gathered, horrified, whispering in disbelief. Moses looked at the ring, then looked into the eyes of the king, who had arrived on his royal chariot to witness the arrest. Moses did not speak. He knew true innocence did not need to shout against a rigged system. King Kazi wanted to ensure that no one, neither Moses' family nor any sympathizer, could ever find that ring to prove the old man's innocence. He ordered his guards to bring Moses to the high cliffs overlooking the river of Kazi, a treacherous, deep, and violently roaring waterway that cut through the canyon.
Let your God find it now.
With a mocking laugh, King Kazi threw the heavy signet ring far out into the center of the raging waters. It vanished instantly beneath the foaming, dark currents.
Where is your God now, old man? Tomorrow at sunrise you will face the ultimate penalty for treason. If your God cannot bring my ring back to my hand, your life is forfeit. Drag him to the dungeons.
Moses was locked away in the deepest, coldest cell beneath the earth. The stone walls were damp, and the silence was deafening. Yet while the king slept fitfully on his silk pillows, plagued by a restless mind, the elders slept peacefully on the hard stone floor. With Moses in prison and their home ransacked by the royal guards, his family had no food and no hope. The village was too terrified of the king's wrath to offer them even a loaf of bread. That night, seeing his mother and siblings weeping, Moses' young son took his father's old fishing net. He went out to fish in the dark, heading to the calmer edges where the river met the lake. He cast his net into the black water, praying a simple prayer for survival. Hours passed, nothing. Then, just as the first hint of purple began to bleed into the night sky, the net pulled violently. It nearly dragged the boy into the water. With all his might, he hauled it in. Inside was a massive, unusual fish, its scales shimmering with a strange, almost celestial silver light. The boy rushed home, carrying the heavy catch through the back alleys. In the dim light of their small kitchen, the family gathered around the wooden table. They needed to prepare the fish quickly to gather energy for the terrible morning ahead. But when they cut it open on the kitchen table, the knife hit something solid and metallic. The mother reached inside, her fingers brushing against smooth, heavy metal. She pulled it out.
The king's ring, it's a miracle. Stop. The ring is found.
The morning
God
of
has
execution
answered.
arrived. The sky was stained a deep, ominous crimson. King Kazi sat proudly on his high throne, built right atop the city walls, waiting to see his critic destroyed. He wanted the whole city to see what happens to those who challenge his divinity. Moses was led out, his hands bound in heavy chains. He was marched up to the edge of the high wall.
Drag him to the city walls. If his God is truly higher than my throne, let us see if his God can catch him before he hits the stones below.
The crowd wept. The guard raised his weapon, awaiting the final nod from the king. A voice pierced through the heavy silence of the plaza. The crowd parted as Moses' son came sprinting up the steps of the wall, breathing heavily, pursued by guards. He bypassed the perimeter and threw himself before the throne, opening his hand. There, resting in his palm, completely clean and catching the morning sunlight perfectly, was the royal signet ring. The king was completely stunned. He rose slowly from his throne, his knees trembling beneath his heavy robes. He snatched the ring from the boy's hand, inspecting the unique royal seal. It was indeed his, the very ring he had thrown into the deepest, wildest currents of the Canyon River miles away. He realized in that breathless moment that the wild river currents, the fish, and the perfect timing could only be guided by a divine hand. No human strategy could have manipulated the depths of the earth to return this token of judgment back to his face. The weapons of the guards lowered automatically. The crowd broke into a roar of cheers. King Kazi fell to his knees, not as a god, but as a man who finally understood his own smallness in the grand design. He ordered Moses to be freed immediately, and from that day forward, the statues of gold were pulled down, replaced by gardens and spaces of community peace. Pride brings a man down, but humility lifts him up. No matter how powerful your enemies seem, stand firm, because the ultimate power belongs to the one who defends the innocent.